Well, good morning. We are here at the Nürburgring, ready for qualifying to this weekend. We had a phenomenal race day yesterday, and the man who's now leading is Kelvin van der Linde. We're a little delayed because of the fog, but surely the weather is going to play along with it, hopefully, but then again, we're in the Eifel, so you never know. So the new leader of the championship is Kelvin van der Linde. There he is, getting ready, about to get into the car, still looking into the sky, checking out the weather, because obviously here at the Nürburgring, it's always a gamble with the weather. He's 1 point ahead of Mirko Bortolotti, so these two are really true rivals, and it's going to be a very interesting qualifying, all about the valuable points, and of course later on it's also going to be a very exciting race, that's for sure. So the man's getting ready, so are we. Let's do it, let's get qualifying. Here are your commentators.
Thanks very much, Verena. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a sunny Nürburgring here in the middle of August. It's typical Eifel weather, really. We had rain yesterday. We are very high up here, elevated above sea level, and when rain stops the next day, quite often you get the mist and you get the fog, and that's what happens. So it's only around this area, this sort of 2 kilometres surrounding the circuit. Where we're based, about 20 minutes away, it's absolutely fine a little bit further down the hill. And it was very thick fog when we arrived about an hour and a half ago, but it's started to lift pretty quickly. We weren't sure we'd get this session underway on time, but somehow we are. The fog is clearing enough that we can see between marshal posts and get the chance to see these cars tackling this 3.6 kilometre long circuit. So this is the sprint version of the Grand Prix circuit. It's been in use since 1984 when the circuit was put together, but of course it is attached to the wonderful Nordschleife, the green hell, over 22 kilometres of insane racetrack. And between 1988 and 1993, it was on the Nordschleife that the DTM used to race here back in the days of the likes of Nicola Larini in the Alfa Romeo. Bert Schneider was, of course, a winner on the Nordschleife, as well as he was at pretty much all of the DTM circuits. And when they use it for the Nürburgring 24-hour race, both are connected, the Nordschleife and this more modern facility. We're in the Eifel region, in the Eifel Mountains, in the west of the country, the west of Germany. And this is the 5th weekend of the season. My name's Chris Hartley. I'm going to talk you through the qualifying session that's coming up to set the grid for this afternoon's race, which will be round 10 of the championship. 8 weekends, 16 races in the championship. And we've got one single championship point now between the top two. As Verena said, Kelvin van der Linde, the new championship leader after getting his 2nd win of the season yesterday. And what a drive it was in wet conditions. He dominated. He got the pole position, he got the win, he got the fastest lap, and he won the race with the biggest margin of victory so far this season. 15.5 seconds clear of Mirko Bortolotti, who got his 2nd consecutive podium finish, but did drop just behind Kelvin van der Linde in the point standings. And then 3rd yesterday was Maro Engel, also with a 2nd consecutive podium finish. He moved ahead of René Rast, who could only manage a 11th place in the race, which meant that Maro Engel moved up to 3rd place in the standings. But speaking to Mirko Bortolotti afterwards, he was actually pretty happy with his 2nd place finish. There's a new compound of Pirelli wet tyre that's been used this season. And Mirko said, we just haven't unlocked the secret yet. He said, I find it very difficult. I've driven around here recently on the older compound, the previous compound of Pirelli in GT World Challenge, and the car behaves much better on that. On this, it just doesn't give me any confidence. It is very tricky. And obviously, Kelvin van der Linde, the Abt Sportsline team and the Audis have unlocked something, because he was absolutely flying on that wet tyre yesterday. And so those are the top 3 in the championship standings. The circuit has been declared wet because we did have overnight rain, and it is damp, it is greasy. It's not properly wet, but it might be the case that they'll at least start the session on the wet tyres. Whether it will end on wet tyres is a different matter. Temperature-wise, it's taken quite a drop since the start of the weekend. It was 24 degrees on Friday. It's now 13.5 degrees. But there is a bit of a breeze out there, and with the cars circulating, it might mop the circuit up enough that we get one of those wonderful wet to dry sessions, which are always brilliant, where each second that passes, each lap that is completed, the track gets quicker and quicker and quicker, and it's almost every time somebody crosses the line that we get a new pole sit up. I'm hoping for that. It could be that. What it is going to be is a bit of a lottery, this qualifying session. So far this year, Jack Aitken has had 3 pole positions in the DTM 2024 Championship. Yesterday, Kelvin van der Linde picked up his 2nd pole position of the campaign. Mirko Bortolotti's had a pole position. Max Powell had a brilliant pole position in Zandvoort. Thomas Preining had a pole at the Lausitzring as well. So they are potentials to look out for, on board with Clement Schmidt in the Duo Motorsport McLaren. After issues with the car yesterday, I'll be hoping for a better day, the Austrian. But he has had some good results so far this season. He also qualified on the front row of the grid in one of the races at Zandvoort, managed to finish in an excellent 4th place. And he's celebrating his birthday today. So happy birthday, Clement Schmidt, as it says on the strap there. Let's hope he gets to celebrate and have a better birthday weekend than he had here 12 months ago when he was on course for a podium finish until contact in the race put him out of contention for that. So he is showing clearly that it's very greasy and very slippery out there. It'll be a case of just getting a feel for it in these early minutes, but you haven't got much time to waste with a 20-minute session to set the grid. So I'm Chris Hartley, as I said, and alongside me in the commentary box, ready for action and anticipating another cracking day of racing here at the Nürburgring. It's a very good morning to Brian Oliver.
Good morning, Chris. Yes, anticipating excitement. As always, the Nürburgring throws up surprises. The weather has been well, not really a surprise here, is it? It was thick fog just a few moments ago. That is clearing quickly. The track is slippery, and that is proven by Clement Schmidt. You could just see him sliding around the corner, trying to find the limits of adhesion around this circuit. But this is an unusual qualifying session because with the track so damp and potentially drying out, but we don't know what the weather is going to do. So it's going to be a really interesting 17.5 minutes. The teams are going to have one eye on the track, another eye on the skies as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's another test for the drivers. They've had dry weather, they've had wet weather, they haven't yet had greasy, damp weather. So again, it's trying to see what is available in terms of the levels of grip out there and just try and make the most of it. But also make sure you get some laps in before you push too hard, because if you make a mistake in the damp, it loses all sorts of traction and time, and you lose your chance to get a good lap in. That's René Rast understeering in the Schubert Motorsport BMW off at turn 5, rejoining just alongside Thomas Preining, who had a great race yesterday from 15th on the grid to 7th and actually moved up to 5th place in the championship as a result of that. René Rast, though, difficult day in the BMW, really difficult day for Sheldon van der Linde as well, who finished down the order. But the 3rd of the BMWs, the green machine of 2-time champion Marco Wittmann, had a pretty good day. He came from the middle of the grid and managed to finish in 6th place. After yesterday's race, Lamborghini are leading the standings in the Manufacturers' Championship by 15 points from Mercedes. Mercedes have yet to get a win this season. They've had 3 seconds, 3 thirds, but they haven't had a win so far this year. The only other brand that hasn't had a win this year are McLaren. They are 2nd in the standings thanks to lots of podium finishes. 15 points adrift of Lamborghini and 32 points adrift of Lamborghini. And 3rd overall are Audi, catching up after their win yesterday. And there was a change at the top of the Teams Championship. Abt Sportsline moving into the championship lead ahead of Schubert Motorsport by, guess what, 1 point. SSR Performance are 3rd. They're on 202, 201 and 177 points respectively. Okay. So the car's starting to build up the speed bit by bit. It's a case of just working up towards it, I guess, Brian, in these conditions, because the track, you've got to get a feel for it. It's not wet. That can sometimes be worse than when it is wet, because the tyres don't really work properly, do they, if they're not being cooled down enough, if there's not enough surface water.
Yes, it's the problem, the age-old problem, getting the tyres up to temperature, getting them into the window and maximising what you've got underneath you. Interestingly, with the first 4 minutes of the session gone, everybody was out on track with the exception of Jack Aitken. There were no problems there. He's directly opposite our commentary box, but he was there waiting. He's now just pulled out of the pit lane, so he now joins the track. He will start that long process of getting the tyres up to temperature. Meanwhile, there are still cars out on track at the moment. We're still waiting for a benchmark time. Ricardo Fellow recorded as quickest, but the 1:36, that's going to be beaten quite easily in this session.
Yeah, I think we'll get better than 1:36. There's sort of wet weather times. Good dry weather time around here is a low 1:25. So I would think as the track gets better and better, there's not a lot of surface water, definitely some dry patches out there. I think we'd probably get down to maybe the 1:32s, maybe a bit quicker, let's see. But certainly they're going to have to go quicker than this. Anjan Nguyen is on a decent lap at the moment. There he is in the green Manthey EMA Porsche. Can't buy any luck this year, can he? He was charging through the field in the first half of the race, but then made just an ever so slight mistake, just ran wide coming out of turn 7 and just put a couple of wheels in the gravel, but very lightly, but it was enough to lose traction and lose momentum all the way up the hill, and also lost 3 places. He then recovered by pitting last of anybody, came right in at the end of the pit window, rejoined in 5th place. Looked like he was going to get a good result, but as he tried to get things up to temperature, going into the left-hander at turn 2, as you get a replay of Ricardo Feller missing the apex at turn 5 as well. Ayhan Nguyen just slipped, just understeered into Nicky Tim, who'd been desperately trying to keep behind him. The pair made contact. There was a spin for both of them. Nicky recovered very quickly and still finished in the top 10, but right to the back of the order went Ayhan Nguyen, and then he got 3 penalty laps as a result of that. Turn 5 is the tricky one. We saw lots of cars going off there yesterday, didn't we? The Ferrari of Thierry Vermeulen had lots of offs because that's a heavy braking zone. In the dry, you approach that turn 5 hairpin where you leave the Grand Prix circuit at 200 kilometres an hour in 4th gear, and you drop down to 80 kilometres an hour in 2nd gear. And the circuit also drops away. It's a little steep drop down there. There's a bit of camber as well. So the back end of the car very quickly goes light, doesn't it?
Yes, and tricky just getting the balance for all around this circuit through all 3 sectors. Just looking at that graphic there, you can see that there are a few cars out on track on slick tyres. The leading one is Thierry Vermeulen. So there are dry patches. I'm looking out of the window. I can see dry patches on the pit straight, but it feels quite early to be chancing the slick tyres. But some of the teams sending the cars out on the slick. So we've got about the majority of the field is still on wet, but the slicks are starting to go on. This is going to be a real gamble for some of the teams, but it could be exactly what they need to do.
It'll be quicker, I think, as it goes on, but it'll also be more risky, easy to make a mistake. And if you miss the dry line and hit the damp patch, or worse still, go 2 wheels onto the grass or onto the wet curbs, you're going to be in strife with 550 plus brake horsepower, a slick tyre and a damp surface. That's going to be like being in high heels on an ice rink. It's going to be completely impossible to try and control. Not I've ever done that. Although I might try it. Ayhan Nguyen is quickest at the moment, 1 minute 35.523. Lucas Auer has also done a 1 minute 35.523. So to within 0.000 thousandths of a second, they are on exactly the same lap time. Ayhan set the time first, which is why he's placed first, and Lucas Auer is placed second.
Yes, you look at the results, and Ayhan Nguyen's results do not reflect the kind of pace that he has here, as we saw yesterday and on Friday. The car is very dialed in. He just hasn't had the results to go with it, as you explained. But he certainly is quick. The Manthey EMA team have prepared a very rapid car here for this weekend, and he has been somewhere near the top of the timesheets pretty well all the time he's been here. It's a good close-up view of a wheel gun there, isn't it?
Yeah, just making sure there's no specks of dust or mud or anything in there, or little bits of grit to stop it locking into the wheel nut as it needs to do. Yeah, slicks going on to Lucas Auer's car. Qualified 3rd yesterday, lost his position through turn 3 at the start of the race, or the start of the race proper after the safety car start, to Maro Engel, but finished in the end in 4th place. His best result of the season. Still looking for a first podium since this event last year. He's rejoined behind Sheldon van der Linde. If it doesn't come off, give it a good kick.
Don't want that happening in a race, do you?
No.
So, yes, give it a kick. Well, slowly going over to slick tyres. You get the feeling that many of the drivers went out, put a banker lap in with wet tyres, and now are going out on the slicks to see if they can better it. So I'd say the majority are now out on slick tyres.
Yeah. The feedback will have been from the drivers, like, the wets aren't going to work here. It's too dry, too many dry patches, and it'll destroy the wets. You do get a limited number of wets, whereas you only get 3 sets of new slicks for Saturday and Sunday out of a race weekend. But you still don't want to destroy them. Not the cheapest thing, are they? Race tyres. So this is all going to change. This is fairly typically for a 2024 qualifying session. Basically, Brian, just going to be a 10-minute session, isn't it? They're all going to go for it now.
Yeah, the only difference is we got to see cars going around for the first 10 minutes, didn't we? So that's something we're not used to. Normally, they're just coming out of the pits about now, ready to get the tyres up to temperature. So that's Ben Dur coming out of the pit lane, having had those tyres fitted, taking it very carefully into turn 1. Of course, tyre warmers not permitted in DTM, so really tiptoeing at the moment. That's very slow. I wonder if he's got an issue or whether he's just keeping out of the way.
It's a bit smoky at the back.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh dear, there are a few issues with Cameron Schmidt's car yesterday as well. So yeah, he's very slow. That's he's just trying to stay, either just really trying to stay out of the way of people. This is maybe a concern, that that right rear. Let's see what we can find out with some team radio.
There's the tyre not completely tight. The car's driving super strange.
It's not gone on. The wheel's not gone on. He was struggling with that wheel nut, aren't they? And the stud. So that's why he's tippy-toeing round. Feels weird. The right rear is not attached properly, and getting a replay of the trouble that the Dur Motorsport team had. So he's got to try and cruise around, make sure he gets back. That's the key thing, to try and then get a lap in. We've had so far this season from the 9 qualifying sessions, 7 different pole sitters. What are the chances of an 8th on a day like this, where you get some very unusual results in qualifying? And Ben Dur is under investigation now for an unsafe release from the pits. So they might be in trouble for that. So more tyre changes, more slick tyres coming on. This is for Luca Engstler. Had a tricky day yesterday, didn't he? But good weekend at the Nürburgring before the summer break with a podium finish. Like most drivers this year, he's had one good race and one bad race most weekends. But of course, he has been one of our race winners this year. And 13 of the 20 drivers are DTM race winners at some point or another. So it's a hugely competitive field. Right, pretty much everybody out on circuit now. Then as Luca Engstler leaves, that is everybody out onto the track. 1:35.523 is the time to beat. There's a big old spread at the moment. There's a second covering the top 9, but there's 7 seconds covering the top 16. So it tells you that almost the times are irrelevant at the moment. It's going to completely change as we get a replay of just how close it was getting here with René Rast squeezing through in the BMW. And as he made his way through at turn 4. So practicing their overtaking as well now in qualifying. I think that was on Ricardo Fella. So here, let's look out then for the top 2 in the championship and see how they are getting on. Kelvin van der Linde at the moment is in 9th place, and Mirko Bortolotti, and there's only 5 kilograms of BOP ballast on that Lamborghini. It's a pretty heavy car this weekend. He's looking to get up the order as well, if he possibly can, because qualifying here is going to be absolutely key. He's 10th, they're 9th and 10th at the moment. So Kelvin van der Linde comes through to start what I think is now going to be, in this next minute or so, the first bunch of push laps. But that track ride is going to get quicker and quicker and quicker. And it might be about positioning here. If you're the last one across the line, you might have the best chance of getting pole.
Yes, we've seen that before on a drying track, haven't we? The track gets quicker. You want to be the last one across the line when the clock strikes 0. At the moment, there are no big improvements at the top of the timing screens, but lots of personal bests further down, particularly in the drivers who are slick shod. And it's going to have taken a few laps to get those slicks up to temperature. So now that they're getting into that temperature window, it may be about now that they're going to start to switch the tyres on, and we will see the times coming down. But it is very busy out there, so it's not just getting the tyres up to temperature. It's not just staying on the track, but it's also finding the space. You don't want to be tripping over other cars, especially if they're on different tyres to what you are.
There's a whole cluster of them going through turns 1 and 2 at the moment. You're absolutely right. Jack Aitken was saying yesterday that qualifying could have been better on his good laps. He got stuck behind drivers who kept making mistakes, so only qualified 9th. Had a good drive though, up through to 5th place. Wet tyres being graded.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking, and I think I can see a bit of rain coming down.
Spit, yeah.
Yeah, and it might be.
Kelvin van der Linde off the road.
Yeah.
Big time. He's gone all the way deep, almost into the barrier. Let's see the onboard. Again, the corner in question is turn 5, and he just about gets it stopped before he gets to the barrier. So that just showed, doesn't it? Just even that little amount of rain. Yeah, he's starting to come down now on the slick tyre. He turned the wheel right to go right, nothing happens, just goes straight on, there's no grip.
Well, Schubert are bringing the wet tyres back in again. There's Ab taking theirs out. There is no...
Bit of morning exercise.
No definitive strategy, but interested to see suddenly teams poised with the wet tyres, and it might be that's the way to go.
Luca Engstler, absolute best middle sector. He was, I think, 4 tenths down on the first sector. So let's see what he can do. But he's already up to 3rd place. So Luca Engstler, I assume, was going to complete the lap. He comes past the commentary box, he goes through, actually doesn't improve. But he's only 10th down on his best lap. So he just lost out a bit in that final sector, really. But 3rd place for him behind Guan and Auer, and 3 tenths behind them. Then it's Engel and Rast and Feller inside the top 6.
Yeah, wets going on Ricardo Fellows' car there. That's very significant. So while others have been changing to slicks, he's going back to the wets. Also, Arjun Maini, it's a set of wets going on there. So it's starting to look as though the treaded tyres might be the tyre of choice, given the conditions that we have. And suddenly, Anchan Guan's 135.523, which is absolutely level with Lucas Auer, first and second, both on 135.523. Suddenly, looking like that might be quite a solid time.
Anchan Guan's best qualifying, he's 2nd at the Sachsenring last year. His best this year is a 4th, and also missing the apex is Sheldon van der Linde. Assume on the dry tyre the way that car is handling, or rather not very well handling. That was through turn 1. He's got Arjun Maini right behind him as well. A personal best lap on the previous lap, though, for Sheldon van der Linde. He also had the absolute best middle sector, so it feels like the middle of the lap is okay, but it's the start and the end of the lap, which is a bit wetter at the moment. So Sheldon up to 10th place, but that lap ain't going to be any good for him, I'm afraid. We've had lots of personal bests on the last lap as well, through the middle of the lap, through the middle sector. So that seems to be the grippiest sector at the moment. Luca Engstler has got 3rd place in the bag at the moment. Is this going to be an improvement? Well, he did a personal best sector earlier on at the start of the lap, and it is. He goes on to provisional pole position. 135.057 for Luca Engstler. Awful day yesterday, but motorsport can take away and it could give you back. He's just missed the apex there, though, hasn't he, on the way into turn 1, but he's got a great lap in the bag already. Will it be enough with 3 minutes to go for pole position?
I see him sliding into the corner. He does seem to like these greasy conditions, doesn't he, Luca Engstler? And he's certainly showing his driving skills. It's the great level of the wet track, and bringing that car through to the fastest of all at the moment. Lucas Stoltz, 2 personal bests, but Sheldon van der Linde, again, a best overall in Sector 2. Yeah, Lucas Stoltz, though, comes across the line into P7, but Sheldon van der Linde, of course, he had that moment, didn't he, earlier on? But he's proving there is some pace in the BMW.
Yeah, absolutely right. Best qualifying for Luca Engstler, 11th at the Red Bull Ring last year, and this year Engstler's best qualifying in the of the season has been a 4th place. Yeah, 4th place at Oschersleben. So this is looking good, but René Rast sets the absolute best first sector time. René, 5th place at the moment. There is the blue Schubert BMW. He's done a 48.867. So we'll keep an eye on others behind him as well to see how they get on in that first sector. Personal best in the 2nd sector as well. Not the absolute best. That belonged to his teammate Sheldon van der Linde. He's actually half a second down on Sheldon's middle sector time. So he messed the start of the lap up, Sheldon van der Linde, with the lack of grip that he had. That middle sector was pretty mighty, and René Rast is nowhere near that, but it should be an overall improvement. Bortolotti's just gone up to 6th place. What about René Rast? He comes through, he crosses the line, and of course he goes quickest. 134.475. René Rast quickest by over half a second, Brian.
Yes, look at as cool as a cucumber. He is, however, under investigation by our stewards for alleged blocking. It says incidents car 91, Thomas Preining, 130, Maro Engel, and 33, René Rast, alleged blocking and reported to the stewards. So hopefully there's going to be no penalties incoming, but a great lap from him. Now Sheldon van der Linde trying to do something similar. Across the line he comes in the identical BMW, stops the clock, and he goes quicker. It is a Schubert 1-2 at the moment. Sheldon van der Linde quickest, but Arjun Maini
from Pereira
briefly there. What did we say about the last minute? Now Pereira's up there.
Pereira goes quickest by 44 thousandths of a second. We're in the last 40 seconds of the session. It could still all change. We've had 3 different pole sitters in the last 30 seconds. So it's Pereira from Sheldon van der Linde, Arjun Maini 3rd, René Rast 4th, then it's Feller and Engstler rounding out the top 6. As for the championship frontrunners, Kelvin van der Linde, the championship leader, is at the moment back in 17th place. Bortolotti much better off in 6th position, and Maro Engel is sandwiched in between them in 13th place. Lucas Auer, good qualifying yesterday. This looks like a good lap. Personal best in the first 2 sectors. He goes through and he goes, 10th. But Maro Engel, absolute best first sector. 2 seconds left on the clock. Maro is in a great position here to get pole position, you know. He's going to be one of the last to cross the finish line. Pereira, top of the times. Nicky Tim takes the flag in 7th. Vermeulen takes the flag in 9th place. It's a personal best for Engel through the 2nd sector as well. So he's almost got this. Maro Engel could be on pole position here, but Marco Wittmann goes there for now. 1:33.9. Here comes Maro out of the final corner on the gas. Dip for the line. Is he going to get pole position? Yes, he is. 1:33.750, and he's done it by 7,000ths of a second as Sheldon van der Linde goes off the road. And Ricardo Vella is going to join him on the front row of the grid. He goes second. They both get ahead of Wittmann. Stolz has just crossed the line. He's improved as well to 4th place. From Pereira, who was on pole position, he suddenly finds himself down in 5th place. Oh no, Sheldon was on course, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Potentially for a pole position there, because he did a personal best in the 1st sector, an absolute best in the middle sector, but just went through the gravel through that final sector.
Still got Preining to come as well. He's done personal best in sector 1 and sector 2, so he crosses the line. Where does Thomas Preining pop up? He's up into P7, so that's a big improvement for him. But now Lucas Auer trying to improve as well. Yeah,
Lucas Auer is just coming out of the Vidal chicane for the last time. He's 17th. He's going to be 17th in about 5 seconds' time. He was 2/10 down in the 1st sector. He's 7/10 down in the 2nd sector. I don't think it's going to be a pole lap this, unless he has a mighty final sector. But it is going to be an improvement. He goes through. It is an improvement up into 10th place. Catch a breath. Is that everybody through? I think it is. Luca Engstler was on pole position 3 minutes ago. He's going to end the session. Well, he's just improved a bit. He was, I think, 17th. He's just gone to 14th. Maro Engel gets the news. I spoke to him yesterday in the press conference and said, what's been the key change then in qualifying? You really struggled with qualifying the first 3 events. He said, well, the first event, I think, as a team, we got it wrong. But we've had a few little tiny components that have taken the pace off. And he says it's so close out there. If everything's not exactly perfect, you are way, way down the order. It's just coming into the final quarter for Sheldon van der Linde, just understeered off. I tell you what, he was on for a much better grid than he's going to get with that lap. But unfortunately, he couldn't get the car turned in through the final corner, and that killed his lap. He will be 9th on the grid. I think he could well have been on course for well, at least a top 3 with the lap that he was putting together up until that point. So he'll be very frustrated. It is a better grid than yesterday. And what was it, 7 minutes to go? Ian Nguyen on pole position, 19th out of the 20. That's how quickly it changed. So Maro Engel gets his first pole position of the season, 1:33.750 seconds, and he's done it by 7,000ths of a second, the 2nd closest qualifying session we've had this year. Marco Wittmann, brilliant 3rd, Lucas Stolz 4th, Mirko Bortolotti will be pleased with 5th given all the chaos. He's ahead of his championship rival, or his closest championship rival, Kelvin van der Linde. He's of course though behind Maro Engel, who's 3rd in the standings. From Pereira in 6th, Kelvin van der Linde in 7th place. Did improve as he needed to on his last lap because he was lingering down the bottom as well, but 7th isn't too bad. He will have most success ballast on his car for the race though, after winning yesterday. Thomas Preining in 8th, Sheldon van der Linde in 9th, Arjun Maini in 10th, Lucas Auer 11th, René Rast back in 12th. He was on pole with about a minute and a half to go, wasn't he? 13th, Max Powell, 14th, Luca Engstler, 15th, Jack Aitken, Nicky Tim back in 16th, Thierry Vermeulen in the other Ferrari back in 17th, then Clement Schmidt, Ian Nguyen and Ben Doer are 18th, 19th and 20th in what was a proper wet to dry to wet qualifying session. It got drier again at the end and it was chaos. So it was good to see the cars out there on track so much during the course of that session. So pole position for the 3rd time in his career. 1st of the year goes to Maro Engel. And crucially, very handily, he gets 3 championship points, and the other 2 at the top of the table won't score any because they're out of the top 3. So Maro Engel, who already moved up to 3rd in the championship yesterday, closes the gap a bit. He'll move on to 108 points. That will get him now to within 19 points of the championship lead. No wonder he's smiling, Brian.
We said that was going to be exciting, didn't we?
Absolutely right. And there to catch up with our pole sitter, I think, is Verena.
Yes, and I've got Maro Engel here with a big smile in his face. Congratulations. It's your first pole in the season, so you've got to be very happy about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Big thanks to the team. They gave me again a great car. We had to wait as a team, as a brand, for quite a while. So it feels good to be back on pole position. And
car feels good, so all hopes to get your win today in the race?
Yeah, hopefully. We'll push hard for sure. But for now, we have the best starting position, so that's great.
All right, well, best of luck. Thank you so much, Maro, and back to you.
Thanks, Verena. Yeah, not just the first pole for Maro this year, but the first Mercedes pole of the year as well. And this is how he did it in super slow-mo. Still smooth as ever, Maro Engel, riding the curbs, but not overdoing it. And by 7 thousandths of a second. I mean, that's less than a thousandth of a second per corner around the lap. He does it ahead of Ricardo Fellow. I think Ricardo, though, who's had a rough start to the season so far, will be very pleased to be on the front row of the grid. Back to Verena.
Oops. And I'm here with Ricardo Feller. So good job you did. You've got P2, and I think in the race you were third twice, so hopefully you can improve that today.
Yeah, I hope so too. It was quite tight in qualifying in the end. Marco was on slicks and it was just 1/10, so I think if there was one lap more, he would have been like 3 seconds quicker. So I'm happy that our strategy worked out. I'm very happy for my crew, and obviously a good start for this Sunday.
Absolutely. It was a bit of a gamble out there with the slicks and the wets, but I guess your strategy did work out, so hopefully you're going to have a good strategy for the race as well.
Yeah, I hope so too. I didn't even check the weather so far, because here you never know. But I heard it could be dry, so yeah, let's see and let's try our best.
We will see. Thank you so much, Ricardo, and back to you.
Thanks very much, Verena. Yeah, that's the second front row starting position of the year for Ricardo, but the last time he was on the front row of the grid was at the Lausitzring. So interested to hear sticking with the wets, but it was getting so dry that Marco Wittmann, he reckons another lap would have definitely got pole position, because he was on the slick time but ended up in third place. This is the lap that just about got Maro Engel his first pole of the season, or the end of it, as he makes his way up into the Vidal chicane, turns left, turns right at the top of the hill. This is where it all went wrong for Sheldon van der Linde, and yeah, you can still see 1 or 2 damp patches out there. And he makes the apex, Maro Engel, gets on the gas, and he's done the job now. It's just a case of firing it up through the gears, heading for the line, getting there, and just about doing it by 7 thousandths of a second. So Maro Engel closing the gap at the top of the championship to 19 points. He is quietly, surely going about his business. And we've got another fascinating grid looking up for our 10th race of the season, our second race of the weekend. And that is coming up at 1:30 this afternoon. From Brian Oliver and me, Chris Hartley, in the commentary box, it's goodbye and back down to Verena.
And I've got Marco Wittmann, who's starting in P3 in the race later on. So far, it's your best qualifying, so you're going to make it hopefully your best race today.
Well, I won in Zandvoort, so I can only equalize the race result, but at least it's a good starting position. It was a very tricky qualifying. We started on wets, moved to the slick tires, and even then I was not sure if the slick is really the better tire choice. At the end, I think we can see that it was so close. Maro and Ricardo were on the wets. I was the first guy on the slicks, or the fastest guy on the slick. So it was very tricky, as the track at some parts were damp, some parts it was already dry. So it was a bit of a compromise, give and taken, and at the end happy that I managed the last lap well, and being on P3 is a good starting position.
Certainly is. So best of luck later on for the race. Thank you so much, Marco. So that was a qualifying here at the Nürburgring, and now, of course, we're looking forward to a very exciting race. So here are the highlights. Enjoy them and see you later. Bye-bye.